First question I'm going to ask is to you, Andy.
Oh.
So what I want to ask you is, do you agree there's been a fundamental change in the business?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, there's a complete change in the business in the past. But personalization is a big change for us. Creatives are having to learn different disciplines and different skills to adapt to the changing to the change.
Kane, I'm going to come to you next. Sort of targeting and relevance is now so focused. We're focusing right down to the individual.
I think there's a lot from actually bigger brands to learn from some of this disruptor brand, the way they're structured, their operational model, how they think about the talent that they hire. And then this is going to go in like a weird rant, but I think fundamentally also the skill set of folks that we hire, which is affecting the ad industry, is that we're training them through things like Miami Ad School, like things that are more traditional. And so when they come out, they're a little bit less prepared, I think, to deal with the reality of content needs that brands need. So I think brands have a lot to learn. I think a lot of agencies like Publicis are moving ahead quite quickly and shifting, I think, the way they think, which is really interesting.
And for you, Charles, obviously Framestore has evolved a hell of a lot over the last 10 to 15 years. It's changed a lot, But has distribution channels changed everything for you?
So one of the challenges for us when we start work is to try and get all the key decision makers together in the same place, which isn't within our control always, But if we can get all the key decision makers together from the beginning, we can decide, okay, what are we making? Can everyone agree it's a commercial, it's an iPhone app or whatever? Because then we can approach things very efficiently from the outset.
Our job isn't about cost cutting or cost control. I think cost control is dead anyway. I think our mission now is to take a budget and get the biggest bang for the buck, right? So most clients know exactly how much they have to spend. And if we work well with the agency, like these guys, then it's about getting the best creativity and the best, if we can spend the most amount of money where it works hardest, which is on screen or in the music or where it has the most impact, that's where it works best for the client.
Automation and creativity, can they sit side by side?
I hope so, because that's where we're going. If we don't, we're kind of screwed. It's a new world, though, and I think I've been involved in some projects in the past couple of years where we've had to do automated creativity, and I've got to be honest, when I first started working with it, I was kind of, this can't be it, right? But I think we're going to get better at it, and it's just the technology will get better, and I think it's down to and it's down to shooting things as well. It's just down to budgets. It's down to how much material you have to automate. Mm-hmm. That's what I found frustrating at first, where you're kind of very limited because of cost. And I'm not a financial person, so don't ask me. But I always think that there's got to be a better way of getting the automated material into the system that you can use. I just and it goes down to craft as well. I think that's another issue with automation. It's just there's a bit of a that'll do attitude to it. It kind of works, right? I hopefully think I think it will get better, and I think we will get more craft involved.
Yeah.
The fact is, you do have multiple screens. You do have the opportunity to get it out everywhere. So the only way I would never be somebody to shoot down an idea, but I would be somebody to be practical at the realities of what it is. And we talk about hiring creatives, and I'm more curious to hear about how you guys would go about doing this. It's interesting to have creatives now that have come in, because a lot of what we've leaned on are more youthful creatives because they're flexible, or because they're somewhat less structured, because they may have more ignorance when it comes to they may be more, ignorance is the wrong term, but they may be more focused on creating something that they would want to watch or that they would want to use or do based on knowledge and ability of the platform. And that's not to disparage anybody who's more senior, because you do need the sophistication, you do need the structure, and the idea that a process, which will always, I'm saying that as a producer, but process will always exist. A process has turned into a siloization, how do we pronounce that? It's siloed, basically, versus reinforcing the hierarchy that it should. A process should create hierarchy so that people have a streamlined, efficient way of operating, but it shouldn't separate the communication lines from each other. Because once it does that, you're totally effed.
So sometimes a client will come to us saying, we think we want to make a VR experience, for example. We've thought it through, and someone's going to stand there, and they're going to be transported into this other place, and this is going to happen, and this will happen. And we'll talk it through, but then we'll come to a point where we say, actually, what you're trying to achieve there is actually going to be a really bad experience. It'll be very nauseating for the person experiencing it. It'll make them want to vomit. You need to consider...
That's never good, really, is it?
No, yet to be a good experience. You need to think about how you're going to physically move the person. They can't just stand there. You're going to have to think about rigging. You're going to have to think about motion bases. And then they'll kind of say, oh, but we've solved this through, and then we're in a really sticky place because they've solved through an idea that maybe isn't the best idea for that platform. Maybe it needs to be something else.
We did a similar talk on the beach in Cannes this year, and I wasn't on the panel, I wasn't moderating, but I asked a question, and the question was to this. I won't say the name actually, because that would be bad, wouldn't it? But the question was, when is too much content too much content? And I'd like to ask this to you first, Kay. So I asked the guy, when is too much content, and his response to me was, there can never be too much content. Mm-hmm. I'd love to know what you think of that.
I generally think it depends on to who.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about this all the time. Being a company, that's headquartered in North America, and our biggest markets are obviously more Western orientation. But you think about how, I'm sure a few years ago, Joe, everybody probably at Joe and Publicis is crazy. We're like 6 seconds. Yeah. Then we start looking at data, and we're like, actually across all platforms, not just on our own, we see people watching extremely long form content on their phones in Korea, in certain places in Brazil, and it's all because of context, right? In Korea, data is ubiquitous. In Japan, it's not. It's very expensive, and so they tend to watch shorter form. And so a lot of times economics drives, I think, art in a really weird way. But I think the whole spiel is just it depends on to whom.
There aren't enough visual effects artists in the world to service what they say they think they're going to make. So it's not that is there too much content, and some of the platforms we deal with is you're only going to be able to make so much. There's, like I said, there aren't enough people out there to make it. And automation can get you 80% of the way there, like we were sort of talking about earlier. But the last 20% will always require, some human intervention to really craft it and make it a compelling piece of content. So, we do a lot with artificial intelligence, machine learning, to automate some aspects of the animation process, for example. But that last 20% that makes it a really compelling performance needs a human to sit there and bring something to it. So, in our world, in certain platforms, there's only so much content that can be made.
I think data is going to help. I've got so many examples of where it's actually helped us in a kind of, not in a way you expect, where we just had, it's almost like strategic data. It's helped you strategically to find out things. Sometimes there's certainties that go into briefs that you go, actually, that's going to really work, And I've pitched with data people quite a lot recently, and they're in the room and they're up front with me. And a couple of pitches I've done where they've actually kind of laid the path for some really good work. Yeah. And I do believe clients, they believe data. Well, obviously, you have to believe data. It's facts, right? So it's the creative and strategy sometimes comes out of thin air. Yeah. And clients love to know that this is actually fact. And then when they see a really great creative idea that comes out of that, you're onto a winner. So it's a really I know Epsilon are a different kind of data. They're a much bigger data company. They're doing much different things, but just I think in many ways creatives are. I've kind of lived through 4 or 5 waves of insecurity with creative people thinking their jobs are going to be done by other people, and I think data was a scary word for creatives a few years ago. I don't think it is anymore. I think it's great.
You got any comment on that, Pat? You
Yeah. Data's here to stay, whether we like it or not, right? And if you've got a great creative idea, data can make that even more effective.
The worst thing you can do is create one execution and then repurpose it across all platforms and say that that's successful. That's not. You lose the idea in that. Which goes back to the question you asked earlier about whether or not there can be too much. And it's impossible to say, like, in my opinion, like, there can be, because this is the other flip side of having like junior creatives or somebody. The more you create, we've come across some amazing creative ideas, but you're like, there's no way we can present that to the client because they will fire us. Like, you need sophistication at a higher level that's able to take that, hone it, and refine it, and that only comes through experience. But you need to also be able to aware that, like, what you're creating, if you're in a mass volume world, only contributes to the sense of disposable content that exists, and you are part of the problem and not creating, from an idea standpoint, the solution. Not making people want to see it, you're just shoving it in their face because you can.
We created a 30-second commercial, but we also, after speaking to them and understanding some more of their challenges direct to the client, we created an application that enabled them to puppeteer in real time the Car Fox character that we built for them. So then they could create their own content. They could puppeteer the character themselves. We created the application so it's very easy for anyone to quickly edit that together so they could output their own content for social.
I want to talk about New York Times, just because what we haven't talked about is craft, and I think there is a perception that content can be cheap and dirty and down, and I don't think it has to be. And I think what Joe goes, I'm going to blushes, but I think what you did on New York Times, at every touch point you saw that work, no matter what it was, there was a consistency and a quality to it, which is, if it was outdoor, if it was print, if it was on my phone, if it was on Twitter, everywhere I saw that work last year and this year, it was beyond excellent. And I just think it's a really important thing that I was saying earlier on. I've got a lot of friends who aren't creatives, who've become creative in the past. I've been a creative for 30 years, but I've got mates who are like bus drivers who now, because of technology, they think they're creatives. They're creative directors, right? But the work's like terrible. It's terrible, but they're doing really well, right? And craft is like a thing that's become. They always laugh at me sometimes, and they go, "What are you worried about? 2-3 days shoot? Like we do." And we've got to be careful not to just go so towards immediacy on creation.
Yeah.
And I just, could be an old fart, but I found what the New York Times did last year a brilliant piece of communication across everything. And so I'll say that. I think creativity right now has almost fractured into so many different ways between, I think, an idea, an execution, and production has almost merged into one big thing.
For us, it's all about the collaboration, between agency, production company, whoever. So the more we can come together and talk about the challenges we're all facing, the issues out there, what we're all trying to do. It's the only way we're going to improve things, and that's what we want to do.
I love the fact that even with all the changes that are happening, how everything's evolving through technology and so on, there are still people that believe in the integrity of the creative idea, and that's really important. Without great creative ideas, you don't get great messages, and without great messages, you don't get great outcomes. So, no, I think it was a pleasant surprise.
To come to something like this, to have people who join you in the audience to watch it, to listen, to absorb it, to talk amongst people you wouldn't normally talk with across different client, agency, post. I mean, it's amazing.
How creativity and technology, and in particular data, can coexist and support each other. I think that's the big takeaway for me. Getting that right, that balance, is quite hard, but when it works brilliantly.
I think it's very important. I think what came through this evening was just the depth and breadth of thinking that in your own maybe silo you don't think about. And obviously we're coming from a technology perspective, so it's important for us to kind of understand the challenges that each of those constituent parts see, but maybe we don't see all the time. So I think this forum is fantastic.